All right. Good morning. It is Friday, and it's June 20th. I think I read first day of summer, longest day of the year, something like that.
I can see we're getting to that longest day of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently this year that this is it. I never exactly remember when first day of summer is, but I just happened to be just like walking by the TV this morning, and the forecaster was saying that this is it, summer solstice, and I just asked real quick in the search engine, and sure enough, June 20th. So, yeah, I used to look forward
downhill from here, then, right?
Yeah. Now the days all get shorter. I used to look forward to this though, because the sun would be up really late, and you know, in fact, I don't even know tonight. I guess it'll be out. I guess it'll be light, very late. So.
Yes, I will. Does my watch still have? So I actually have one of the cool little gadgets on my watch is what sunset is, and I believe tonight it is supposed to be around 8:34 here locally.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Adjust for your time zone and location.
That's true. And I think if I'm right about this, compared to where I grew up in Southern California, I think the days are a little that the daylight is a little longer on a day like today. Longer, is that the right way to put it? Later, maybe later is probably it.
Later.
I don't know if that means there's more or less daylight. I haven't looked into that, but I think.
Well, I think that's the
the whole thing about the Earth being round.
Yes, and tilted and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And hey, good morning, Alan. Thanks for joining us. Good for us to be back. It's been tough with. It's funny, we're getting close to school's over.
Yep.
But I was traveling this week, so I couldn't do. I think we did one. Did we do one? We did do one Monday.
We did on Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah. So I just double checked, and where I grew up, the sunset is 8:05 tonight.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yes. So sunrise here, where I'm sitting right now, was 5:34 a.m. Sunset 8:35 p.m. And if I look at where I grew up in Southern California, 5:40 a.m. for sunrise and 8:05 p.m. for sunset. 14 hours and 25 minutes of daylight compared to 15 hours and 1 minute. So I wasn't wrong. Like it's just, it's only a half an hour, but it just always seemed like it. Once I moved out here, I said like, wow, it stays light even later. So what are we doing today? We probably have a shorter show. So we were going to concentrate on some things that are a little different. One of them is that I don't know if I've shown here on the show before that I do have it's not as easy to up the font here. So I want to make sure that that's enough, or do I need to bump it even more?
I mean, I'm watching this in a very small section of a monitor, and it looks clear to me, but happy for comments for those who are remote. So,
yeah. Plus, it feels like for some reason maybe I'm better off just slightly bringing the window in, because it doesn't look like it's capturing the whole. I don't know why that is. This happens to be Linux Mint. I think it's Ubuntu 22, so I don't think it's 24. Pretty sure about that. And this is actually running in VirtualBox. So
thanks, Alan, for the confirmation that it's looking good out there.
Okay, great. So there are a couple ways that a user could use Linux on their Windows desktop. Like, you have options.
Right.
I think one of the ones we all know is, here's a Windows terminal into WSL. So I do have a WSL instance, and I even updated my WSL instance to 24. I don't remember when I did this, but as you can see, in fact, you were here with me as I double checked to see, well, now how far have I gotten with this WSL instance? Well, it looks like I've installed Git, but I haven't installed .NET. So this isn't going to help us. There are some really neat things about working in WSL. We've done it before on the show. It's kind of neat that you come here and you can do your Linux commands and so on, but you can also go out to your Windows desktop, open Visual Studio Code, and it'll SSH right in for you. I mean, you can SSH into any Linux box from Visual Studio Code, but it's kind of magical how Visual Studio Code handles it, and it'll run it there, but yet open like your Windows-based browser and things like that. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. And if you think about where you're going to deploying it, that might be a cool thing to be able to include as part of your, hey, I got it working, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a .NET run out of that Linux environment, just to make sure that when I push it to a cloud and it's running in Linux, it all kind of goes the same way.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do this in a future show, but you can actually open Visual Studio Code, connect to your WSL instance, and then just stay in Visual Studio Code. The terminal will be there, code will be there, it'll launch Windows, launch browsers. So from a web development perspective, it can be really neat. So let's get back to this virtual instance. Why do I do this? And the main reason why I do this is not necessarily because I think it's important to have a Linux desktop. You could just as easily, whether it's Linux in a cloud or just a server-based instance, and you would be working very similar pattern to what we just talked about with WSL. You can do that from your Windows machine, but I think it's important for me, and also I think to show that if you want to work in Linux, fine, work in Linux. There's nothing stopping you. It doesn't have to be Linux Mint. I only chose it because to me, it seems a little lighter weight than the Ubuntu instance. That's I don't have any real evidence of that, but it just has always felt like it was snappier, and I think it is a lighter weight instance. With the XFCE shell is also meant to be like a lighter weight shell. It is not the lightest. I totally get that, and I've tried to do a lot of research to like say, do I really want to go for like the light? And I just kind of found like it's an overwhelming world, and I think a lot of what Linux usage is finding the desktop and distribution you like, or maybe rolling your own, and that's part of the fun of it too. So, but it was more than I wanted to deal with, so I kind of said like, okay, this is good enough. So, Oh My Posh is running in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's Oh My Posh right there.
Oh, cool.
And in fact, I'm even using the same, those. Let me see real quick if I can find it. So in my home folder, let's double check. Is it obvious? I don't remember where I don't remember where I'm keeping the template files. Okay. But somewhere in here I'm keeping the template files. I've just forgotten where.
I think if you do the profile command, right, that will.
You know what would do it is, what if I look at my bash RC?
And
yes, look at that. I opened Nano, which is going to drive some people crazy because they're like, who uses Nano? So I have it in home, local bin. I've created an Oh My Posh themes, and I brought my very same JSON file, the same exact one, over from Windows. And I just at the very end just have it evaluated. And I think I might be the last person on earth that uses Nano instead of, say, well, almost anything. I would actually like to get NeoVim going. I'm just new to it. I'm very excited by it. I've watched it in use, but I'm too new to it to where in the moment I go like, I don't know what to do. So, anyways, let's get to where we're at with this app.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to want to be in the correct folder, and as you can see here, we have, what's interesting is I don't know if I lose Zoom It capability. I might. That's kind of a bummer. It looks like I Zoom It.
Yeah, because you're a different host command.
Yeah, and the keyboard's getting intercepted. I wonder if I can. I'm sure there is a Zoom It counterpart that I can find.
Well, yeah, but if you click out on the desktop, right, because you've got that border around where your VM is. If you click out there, then they'll work.
Yeah, but so this is actually not my Windows desktop out here. I suppose that if I did this and just made that a little bit smaller, then I agree with you.
Yep, there you go.
Yep. So what we wanted to just do real quick was just say what I was really trying to do there. And I don't know that that's worth it at the moment, so I'm not going to worry about it. I was going to say, okay, so we can see the bones of the orbital app here. The other thing I'm going to do is set this back to full screen. So I can also just hit code dot and very quickly get up Visual Studio Code. I don't necessarily have to do that. We can do a .NET run from here. And so the next question you might have is, okay, that's right. That's right. Because
the upper level.
Yeah, but I can do this. App host. If I want to run it from Aspire, I can say, pretty sure I've done this correctly. There we go. Is I can say, let's run orbital app host, and it's going to get to work. Now, I don't think this is going to take too long. So some of the interesting things about our application, we are using Azure Cosmos DB, and we're also using the Preview emulator. I think was good fortune because the Preview emulator works in Linux. I don't believe the current GA emulator does. So, oh, that's interesting. Why am I getting a trust issue there?
Did you do the client in Linux?
I did. I don't remember. That's interesting. Only trusted by some clients. But that may not be a problem. I was going to talk about some of the things that I fought through. And one of them is ASP.NET Core, even as a developer, they are pushing an approach of work in HTTPS from day one. And I actually think that's a good idea because it can be hard. Like if you work without that the whole time, and then you all of a sudden start layering on HTTPS, sometimes you realize that you didn't necessarily plan for that. So in any case, getting that developer certificate trusted is a better experience than it used to be. For me, it was really good. It was just using the .NET DevCert tool. But then I had to do one more thing for OpenSSL to trust it, is I had to set a environment variable. So let's see. It says that the distributed application is listening, so I can log into the dashboard here. It didn't open this stuff for us, but if even in this terminal, I can do control click, and I'm going to tell you, I do not know if that's because I'm just using this plain terminal. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there saying, why don't you look at other terminals besides the built-in one? And I hear you. I agree. Those are all things I do want to do. But let's see the Aspire dashboard come up here. Firefox is the default for this particular distribution, although I do have Chrome on it as well. And it's really cool. Everything's running. I can go to the Data Explorer. And let's see how this all works for us. Because we've had issues with this in the past, right? Where, oh no, we're looking good.
I got items in there and everything.
Yeah, I've even got my one item that I threw in just to see it work. So it really feels like nothing's changed, right? We're just
we've moved it to a complete new operating system. So
and that's good. I actually think in some respects I have always, on personal projects, I've always tried to work very hard to do two things: is make my project coming straight out of GitHub or Git, or I don't care what server you're on, your Git server, straight out of source control. F5 and it runs in Visual Studio, runs in Visual Studio Code with maybe some minimal setup, because on Visual Studio Code you might want to set your launch JSON file your own way. And works in Linux, and I think it's not hard to do. In fact, it's not that I really did anything. I just got everything installed. From there, I can click, app opens, and our application now, we know that we can read this. And this is all coming out of our preview editor. I'm sorry. I need another terminal here. This is why I need to invest in finding a better terminal, because I could have it be multi-windowed with the whole. Let's see. Taking a quick look. So the preview emulator has been up for 3 minutes. And then, when I got things going, I use the hello world container. So yeah, I have a habit of doing Docker ps-a, which shows you all the containers, even if they're not running, which is okay. But that's the running containers. So
nice.
So yeah, I think it's really neat. But what you probably noticed when we started today is it even said here, Aspire version 9.2. So we haven't really kept up with Aspire having moved to 9.3.
Yeah.
So
and we're not that far behind. I mean, no. 9.3 was launched at Build, which was just over a month ago.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's not like it's bad. So let's see real quick. Let's see what we talk about here. Oh, okay, so upgrade to .NET Aspire 9. That's interesting. From the CLI. And so we don't have to worry about removing that workload. I do know that we can change to upgrade your app host to 9. You upgrade your project file. Optionally upgrade. Yeah, okay. This is talking about what does your app target? Does it target .NET 8 or 9? And one of the things about Aspire 9 is that you can use it with .NET 8.
You're right.
So I don't think there's really much more to do. This is the one where we'll want to change the Aspire packages.
That might be a little small if you could bump the font up on that.
Is it? Oh yeah, you're right. And it's in a browser. So the nice thing is
that's better.
All the browsers give me Control Plus to do that. So I don't know that we have much to do, but I guess that's what we're here to find out. So let's close this stuff down. The app is shut down. And we already have Visual Studio Code open, which is another application that is pretty nice about making it very quick to bump up fonts. So in our CS project file, is it really as simple as us changing this and changing these? Is that really going to be it? I'm a little curious if these are our only instances of Aspire.hosting.
Aspire.hosting, yes, but you're going to have other.
So the test project.
Host. Yeah.
So that's just what I was wondering, right? So let's search for it, and the test project also.
Oh, good call.
And we'll have to look into what happened here, because maybe we don't need it. I don't know. Oh, this, well, okay, it's not that important. This is probably for us when we were getting the end unit version of this stuff going. We might be able to prune a lot of this.
Yeah, I agree.
So in any case, the question is that really it? Because what we don't need to do, I mean, it'll be nice to do, and probably not, is I don't think we need to go to .NET and install the templates, because we're not building a new app.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you want, then you'll just be confused the next time, I suppose. It's like, wait a second, why is this coming up in 9.2? So maybe that's all. So what I'm going to try is, let's see what happens if I say, so here we are in Visual Studio Code. I do have the C# dev kit installed, and it does look like, okay, it looks like it pretty much understood it. It just said, well, your current document isn't in a project, but now it is. So it seems to be in good shape. So
just a comment.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a 9.3 one.
Yeah, I mean, looking I was trying to find where that was in the documentation, but thank you, Alan, for keeping us honest there. Let's see.
Okay. Now, it might be easier to figure this out of NuGet.
Right, because Aspire is a NuGet package.
Yeah. Yep. Look at that. So Alan is on top of it. 931. Okay.
So it might be better just to do the update from, or look at the packages. Well, you'd have to do that in every project. Never mind. I was trying to think if we could just go to the command line and say, but
so you can. I mean, I certainly could have gone to command line and used .NET add package, but as you can see, I kind of am partial, and this is just me, to just saying. So if I'm in Visual Studio and I do this, it just starts downloading the packages.
Yeah.
Here in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to have to do a .NET restore. And I don't have to do it in code. I could have gone back out to the terminal. And
there you go.
What I'm wondering is that it? I could do .NET Run from here, but I want to see if I can attach from the debugger. So I'm going to give it a shot. Now, what did it decide to launch? Launch startup project, which is app host. I may have set that in a previous evening. I think I meant to roll back past that or to delete that setting so that we could show it, but apparently I've forgotten or I didn't do it. So in any case, let's see.
What? So did you say it was starting app post? Because that's what we want, right?
It is what we want, but the experience that I was working towards is if you have no launch JSON, or any launch settings, then Visual Studio Code with the C# DevKit plugin will, when you click the Run and Debug button, what it'll do is it'll say, okay, what do you want to debug? And you say C#, and it says, okay, well, what do you want? Do you want the startup project? And then you say, yeah. And then it says, oh, silly me, I don't even know what that is. And so you tell it that it's app host. Right. And then it just hangs on to that. And to be fair, I'm not sure where it does. It might be a workspace setting, or maybe it's sitting. No, it might be a workspace setting, because notice what hasn't been created is there's no launch JSON file here.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with launch JSON files. Launch JSON files are your way to say, here's how I want this to launch and debug and so on when I'm in VS Code. They're great. But one strategy you can use if you are a dev team that maybe knows that you have developers that like a little bit of each is you can concentrate on this file instead in your project, the launch settings JSON file. Concentrate on getting this file correct, because what happens is the VS Code Dev Kit will say, well, let me just launch this first profile. And when you're in Visual Studio, this may now click for you. When you're in Visual Studio and you go to hit the little run button up at near the top, and it says HTTPS, well, that's where that's coming from. It's coming from this file. It's not Visual Studio making it up. The only thing I have done to this file is .NET by default, it's HTTP is first and HTTPS is second. And so in Visual Studio, I very commonly am running the HTTPS profile, which is what I want, because it runs the application with both a URL that's secure and a URL that's not. But what I have found, and is in Visual Studio Code, or even a .NET Run. Well, actually, no, .NET Run doesn't work the same way. Visual Studio Code will run the first file, and so my frustration was that it wasn't running an HTTPS version of it. It wasn't exposing it on an HTTPS port. That's how I should really say it. Gotcha. So I just rearranged it and committed that to version control, because I figured, like, this is what we want, and I don't think it's a big deal. You know,
you usually flip that toggle anyway.
I think it leads to an interesting discussion of, should you commit VS Code and VS files? I I think it's another one of those things that sparks a lot of like passion. Some people are very passionate about it, like no, and other people it's like, oh, but then your team can just get to work. But anyways, so what we have is, let's see. I hope this all didn't blow up on you while here. It says log into the dashboard. So let's see how we're doing. Okay, everything seems to be up and running. I think. Oh, this is the dashboard trying to start as well, so it's fine. I don't need it. I don't need two of them. But here I am struggling just to make the window bigger, though. It's like I can't quite get the mouse right. So I can run the application. We know this works. You were going to say something, I think, right?
I was going to let you go ahead and go, but eventually, yes.
So our application runs. And here's our... We might need to work on the stream rendering for that. So my dog heard the garage door open and thinks...
Oh, no.
The whole world is ending. So let me open the door for him.
Okay. So I think, yeah, Christoph talked about that when he gets back around the streaming endpoint, or the streaming of data down to this page here, which I don't think we have enabled.
No, because it said like no meetings. It showed that for a little while instead of maybe being. We'll want to switch it to some kind of indicator that we're checking for meetings. And then we can do little things like run the API, which doesn't do much for us. I mean, it does if we say like API meetings, right? Yeah, there we go. I can click pretty print, and there's our one. So that's all working. Now, this is the feature in Aspire 9.3 that I would like to understand and explore a little bit. But I don't know that it's that useful right now. But this little thing got added.
Yeah.
And I say I don't think it's that useful right now because I believe one of the things you can do with this is to say, like, perhaps there's some exception being thrown, and so this particular dashboard would show errors and so on, and you would see in the logs, you would see maybe there's this mess of red.
Right.
And here you are at 2 a.m. trying to figure out what does this mean, that you can begin a conversation to start figuring out what's in the logs. And there's probably more, but that's just one thing that I've thought of.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm thinking, well, what if we killed the container that is the Cosmo and we tried running it, right? Will we generate some errors?
Okay. The other thing is, I was just going to ask it. Let's just ask it real quick. Is the web application. Just a natural language question. What's the URL to access the web application? I don't know what it's going to say. Apparently I have to allow. Okay, I guess I had to allow something there.
C# dev kit, it looked like, right?
Yeah, like C# dev kit. But then where did it go? Here we are. So the answer was your app can be accessed at 7045 and 5155, which is correct, 7045. So, again, I didn't ask it the most difficult question, but
no,
but you talked about what if we just close something down in Docker, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me remember how to do that. I have to admit that this early in the morning. So let me get a list of the containers again. Yep. I think you're right. I think that's it. Docker container. ls. And I want this container here, 344 being, and that's probably enough. I guess I probably don't have to copy it. 344F, probably good enough. It's thinking about it. And so it has been exited.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm guessing this should make Aspire may not be very happy now. Oh, since it's exited, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, if we try to run this, I suppose, I don't know if it's going to generate an error, but
But you could certainly look at your tracings, right? Won't they fail?
yeah, I was just wondering if it was going to completely blow up, or maybe it won't. It's hard to say. I'm trying to remember what our code does. We might be catching this exception, but then it doesn't mean that we're doing anything useful with it. Which means that it could just be sitting there waiting on something. It's not in here, but yeah, I think eventually we'll come to a better use case. I was just trying to say, like, is there something we can ask? So the purpose of this Copilot chat, as I understand it, is that you can use this to get more information out of what Aspire is giving you.
Yes, and the telemetry and the observability aspects of, the that's happening and being collected as part of the dashboard. You can interrogate that. Now, I haven't played around a lot with it, but I've,
okay, so this finally did.
Knowing that's there. Go ahead.
This finally did throw an exception, and I'm not sure that we're doing anything useful with it. It doesn't look like we are. We're not handling it. So this should create the stack trace of doom. And let's see, anything back here? Okay, all right. So yeah, look at this. It's just like, oh, boom, right? Okay, so we have a couple errors that it's picked up.
Yeah.
And like you said, here's a trace for it. So the next thing is, I'm not sure what to ask it, other than, oh, that's good. I guess I cleared them in some way. But if I come back, shouldn't it show me them?
It's probably going to need context. So my guess is, being in the space where the error is, like the stack trace that you've got here, and then asking it a question.
What do you think caused the failures in the web API? Based on the resource graph, the Cosmos DB container resource and related database resources are in an exited state. These Cosmos DB issues could cause failures in the web API if it depends on the database for data access.
Yep. There are some comments from Alan and also Mitch around just go to the traces.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when I clicked on the little red dot, it's like my user experience was just that. Then I came back to look at them again, and it's like, well, you already looked at them, but here's the list. So that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. So haven't tried using this feature at all, but I saw it. The 9.3 update was, okay, our little GitHub friend is here, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I will say, how we've talked on this show many times about, and last year, 2024 was the year where I kept on harping on, is there more to AI than chat? Like, what else is there?
Right.
And everything we're seeing with agents and has kind of opened my mind a little bit. But when I saw this, I said, okay, now we're moving beyond just do something for me. And this is more of, I have a problem. Can you analyze it for me? And that's when I began to first realize this could go way beyond. I see how this can go beyond just being in my IDE. There's no reason that we can't have some kind of agent in the user group app that helps you set up a meeting.
Right.
I feel like it could go and create a bio for a well-known speaker, or frankly, it doesn't even have to be all that well-known. I have been surprised sometimes at Visual Studio Code when I'm writing in the README doc, and I'll put my name, and it knows that in our README docs for each user group, it can see the dozens and dozens of them, and it's like, oh, well, you like to put a bio afterwards, and so it'll just paste it in.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's a great comment there around, when you're looking for things, well, how do I use this, right? It's look at those chat windows that are the prompt suggestions that are there that you
Yeah.
can then go ahead and use. Because oftentimes with this, it's not, it's the suggestion of how other people might use this where the brain, the ideas start popping around it. So those prompts become very important to figure out new ways of asking questions, basically.
That's really cool. How can I monitor the health and performance of the web API? I actually kind of like that. Implement health checks. Yep. Distributed tracing, structured logging. Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is something I'm really excited about too, is integrating OpenTelemetry and then getting, a dashboard up and going, because it can become really easy to say like, oh, I've got this thing is great. This thing's awesome. And, Al even pointed out, I could have hit stop in the dashboard, and it's like, yeah, I guess that's true. In fact, it looks like I can even just hit start from here.
You can hit it again, yeah.
And, but no, this really made me, and I think
it'll go to healthy soon.
It'll go to healthy in a second. There we go. Awesome. And then the Data Explorer. And, this is a habit that I've gotten into on the Windows side, which I'm not sure is just, how I've told you that sometimes this just seems to disappear, the container and the database. And then what I do is I just destroy the container image and everything works fine. I don't know if that's just a function of the preview emulator, and I've had a little workaround, so it's not that big a deal. Not yet anyways. But I don't know. I found that pretty cool. And I don't know that this is the best example, but what I'm going to keep in mind is that, okay, now when we're troubleshooting issues, we have another resource about what's going on at runtime. I don't understand. Yeah, go ahead.
Which is great, because it's a little different than what I think in the past had done with when we run into an issue, is that we might copy and paste the error that comes out of the stack trace or what comes back from the API call and pass that and just paste that into a chat window and saying, hey, here's what's blowing up and here's the error that's coming back. Help us. And this kind of streamlines that. So
yeah, because what I was going to say is, the context that is being used here, if I'm in Copilot here in Visual Studio Code, I think context is typically limited to the files that are open, the projects that are open. I think that's true. I'm more than willing to be corrected here. And then when it comes to this, it seems to have a little more context. It's like, well, I understand what's going on in my world here, these resources and what's in the trace logs and so on.
Yep. Yeah. And you can, it's not just code you looked at. If your files in their documentation or infrastructure components, right, is separate. Usually those are kind of split out into separate folders. You can bring those folders into the conversation as context too. And context is the important part, because you want it knows a lot. It knows, but it's basically just, stringing words together. So you want to refine that, the knowledge with which it tries to put those words together, based around a certain set of fields or files. And then I think there's a great comment here from Mitch around some of the things he's doing when he's testing this feature out, and getting serialization. I'm testing the feature out. My test case is getting serialization working with Cosmos DB.
Okay. No, I remember we were very early on. We had our whole conversations about the C# class and what it ended up producing in Cosmos DB, and were we happy with it? But we have a lot of issues to tackle. I feel like we've had several episodes that have been kind of like maintenance episodes, kind of getting a testing framework in place. And then now I wanted to make sure that this was running and working well in Linux, so we kind of have that portability. Might even work in Linux more. I'm a big fan of the projects being portable. Maybe that's just me being kind of a nitpicky perfectionist about it, but for me, it's a little bit like how if you let warnings get away from you, which we are starting to do, you let warnings get away from you, and then you have 247 of them in your project, and you're never going to come and clean them up. It's also, get 6 months down the line, and then you try running it in a different operating system for the first time and it doesn't, cleaning that up could be a mess.
Yeah. True.
One thing that I found when we talk about, like, it's interesting that it keeps complaining to me about the network. That's funny.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're still connected.
I appear to be, yeah. I don't know why this instance is going crazy about it. One thing that I've run into using like a Copilot chat or something is that I feel like telling it that you have a problem in your code instead of what perhaps we might get out of an Aspire like Copilot or a Copilot with that context is that you tell it, hey, I have a problem in this and it's doing this. Can you help me fix it? And it'll say, oh, sure. But it doesn't have complete context. So the answer that it ends up coming up with isn't really right either. And then as you continue down that rabbit hole, it just gets worse and worse and worse because I feel like it's hunting to try and please you in some way. And you're going like, I just want the problem fixed. I don't care what it is. So,
and some of that is a lot of back and forth. And I think, Alan makes a good point in the chat around, people hearing that the label is there around it's powered by AI, right? So and the other thing we also, it also calls itself a Copilot for a reason, right? You're the one who's in charge, right? You're still flying the plane. You're still putting the code together. So you need to validate and refine what its thinking is if you really want it to try and help you and say, well, this, adjust the context if it starts going down a bad path. So
yeah. Oh no, I agree. I think all of us are on this search for finding like where are the lines that we can draw around what assistance is like super reliable and what assistance needs to be verified. And we're learning. At least that's how I feel. I'm learning how to use this, and I've had tremendous successes. And then I've also had some like, oh, I don't know. Let me just scrap it and do what I was going to do anyway. And then there's going to be some time. And then the thing about it too is it's also accelerating capabilities.
Yeah.
So that means what was painful a couple weeks ago, right? Like Alan says here, I think this is true. What might have been painful a month ago or 6 months ago, this time, exact same context, exact same setting, you go, oh, now it's amazing, right? So, but yeah, everyone is still grappling with how to use these tools. It's an interesting world.
Yeah, and hang on to that one for a second because I think that's really important, right? We're still trying to figure out the right ways to interact with and build and use those. But I think the important thing is, it's going to get stuff wrong and not wrong, but that, there's some things where, we're still trying to figure those things out. I think what the important thing is as developers and, in other places where these tools are certainly available is to get in there and continue to use them so you can better understand how they can help. And certain situations might be that, it's a little too complex to do for those right now. As you say, there's a continue to evolve and, older solutions would have thrown at it a few months ago and failed, have leaded to increased success. But I think the whole point of this is you got to get in there and start using it because I think that's what's going to, change the game for those who are in different positions, different roles, different developers. And again, it goes across just what we're doing in development, but don't be afraid to try it. So,
oh yeah, I've already had some tremendous success. I know this isn't exactly what we're talking about here, but I don't remember if we talked about this on a future show or if it was on wouldn't have been a future show. That would be amazing if we talked about it on a future show, but on a previous show, or if it was just a conversation you or I were having, is that as someone who likes to speak at user groups and present samples, like that's very much my thing, is I will often build the sample. And sometimes the talk comes from a sample is I'm doing something and I go, oh, I feel like I've stumbled onto something interesting. I want to turn this into a talk, and then I will. And then I find I'm going to now create the instructions for the person in the audience to catch up to where I'm at. It takes 10 times longer. And it's a result of tearing apart the sample that I probably was hacking away at. And first of all, cleaning it up for some halfway decent practices, if not best practices, but also turning it into a step-by-step. What should you do first? What should you do second? And I asked now that we have the agent capability, I asked it to do that for, in fact, let me go ahead and move away from our Linux terminal here, because I may be able to show it to you. I don't know. I asked GitHub to do that for this particular project. And what I was really impressed about was I thought it did a pretty good job with limited context, me asking a very limited question of just like, hey, imagine that you are going to give a presentation and walk through step by step how to build this from scratch. How would you do so? And what I found was I kept like reiterating on the prompt. And I made the prompt like a little better. Sorry that there's really nothing on the screen right now, but we're getting there.
You're getting there.
I made the prompt a little bit better. And basically I started adding things to the prompt like, so assume the user is only going to use the .NET CLI. They're not going to use any features of Visual Studio Code, the C# Dev Kit, Visual Studio, anything like that. And it's because I wanted to really narrow the focus. And it produced this, which shouldn't be too hard to show a preview of, right?
Yeah, you might want to bump the font a little.
Definitely, but for some reason I can't get it to show a preview.
Right click on the tab, open in preview. There you go.
And I actually was really impressed with this.
Yeah.
I started reviewing it just, to make sure that it was pretty good. But I thought like, I think this certainly is a path to get something into our repo and just allow people to catch up. And I even love that it's so, at the end, it's very positive. Even provided some further resources. I think that's something else I added to the prompt was provide links to places in the documentation for individual concepts, things like that. I was impressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, it captures a lot that way. And it's not that we couldn't do it, but there's a lot to, it does it so much more efficiently and faster than we could certainly do to get those things in place. So and then,
I'm used to hitting Control KV, and it's my muscle memory here. So I know that there were lots of. There we go. For some, what I don't think I was pulling my finger off Control fast enough, and it's because different. So then I'll head over to Visual Studio where commenting a line is Control K, Control C. So there I have to keep holding Control, but this one I don't have to keep holding Control. And sometimes I get confused. And it's also Friday morning, so I still think I'm, for some reason, ready for the weekend is what I think it is.
I think so.
But hey, I know we didn't get a whole lot done today, but the main things I wanted to go through is our projects is ready and works fine in Linux. I actually think it might be helpful. If people are having trouble with that, I'm wondering if it'd be helpful to do a walkthrough video. Doesn't necessarily have to be a show. It could be like an offline video on, starting from scratch on a Linux desktop, or even in WSL. That might be better. And getting all the pieces installed that you need in order to just kind of be in that portable space where your project runs in both places. Yeah. There wasn't much. There really wasn't. I actually made it harder than, I think in my head, I made it harder than it needed to be. For the most part, once .NET was installed, it was the dev cert. And then it was just getting OpenSSL to trust the cert, and that was it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool ways to do this too. You don't have to do it yourself. Right. Just like Mitch points out here, there's a pre-set up code space. And everything's just working. So
yeah, very cool though. Nice to see it running there, and now we've got that upgraded, and we can check that in and have that ready for some of the things we want to try and get to next week, and start to to really build out some of the functionality here, because I think we've got a lot of, like you said, we've got a lot of stuff to kind of clean things up. And I love
that's my favorite feature.
Yeah.
Is if it works in a code space, it works locally in a dev container. That's my favorite bit. So
absolutely.
I think a lot of people know that, like, I love using those tools, and then I also like digging under the covers just a layer or two. So that's kind of why, that's what that's all about. But we're set to move forward here. We've got it. We're going to get attendee RSVPs in, and then I suppose we'll need authentication so that only authorized people can add meetings. But we basically have this summer to try and get it tested out, right? Because I know the user group would like to use it this fall. So
that's the hope. So
yeah,
that'd be cool. Yeah.
Well, hey, we had a lot of great participation and help today. Thank you very much, Alan and Mitch. It's very helpful. And I hope you're enjoying it. You know, we're enjoying using these products and trying to get like beyond the tutorial. Like, let's use it for real, and that way we can discover what do we need to learn more about, what are the little bits and pieces that might be helpful to someone watching. Hopefully it was helpful to you. So in any case, I would say, Rich, if we're ready to get out of here.
Yeah, definitely. We'll throw up the archives there. So if you've not, if you're just seeing this for the first time, you want to go catch up on some of the stuff we've done in the past, there's the archive link down below. And I think we're ready to wrap. All
right. Well, hey, everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy the beginning of summer, especially in this hemisphere. And I suppose, gosh, I can't even imagine, because I guess, we're so Northern Hemisphere centric, right? To think that on the other side of the world, I guess it's winter solstice, but I actually don't know to think about it. I guess it is, right? But
I would think
I don't know if that's how it's referred to, though. I really don't. I don't know. So we'll learn. In any case, hey, everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.